In this video, we're gonna take a look at creating a to-do app in React Native. The video will consist of two parts. In the first part, we will create a layout for the app. In the second part, we'll create a function for adding notes and deleting notes. And as you can see, you can add notes like this. And you can also scroll the notes. And you can also delete the notes. So let's get started. We're gonna start by removing the default React code. We can leave the container here for now. Let's also delete the style sheet. Next, we're gonna create a new folder named app. Inside app, let's create a new folder called components. And inside the components folder, let's add a new file. We can copy the code we got in app.js and paste it in. Here we're going to create a new component called main. So let's name this main. And we're also going to have to include some components from React that we're going to use in our main component. We're going to use the text input for writing notes. We're going to use the scroll view to be able to scroll through the notes. Otherwise they would be hidden if we can't scroll. And also we're going to use the touchable opacity to create buttons. Save the file as main.js in the components folder. I'm just going to change the syntax to Babel. So let's go back to app.js. We can actually delete this from app.js. We can also delete the entire style sheet. And let's delete the container from app.js. And let's import the component we just created, the main component. So let's write import main from app/components/main. And let's create the main component here, add it there. Now we can go to main.js and just add a simple text inside the component just to see that everything works. Reload the app and let's see if we got any results. Yeah, it's working. Expo, as I'm using to develop the app, adds this status bar, but as you can see, there's the text behind it. So the next step is to start creating the layout for the actual main component. So remove the text we just created, we don't need it. And let's create the container, name it styles.container. And let's give it a flex 1. That way it will have full width and full height. Next we're going to create a header for the application. So let's create a view and give it a style of styles.header. We can call it header. And in the header let's add some text component. And we can call this app noter. Let's give the text component style. We can call it header text. And don't worry about the styles here, I'm gonna create them later. For now we're just creating the actual layout. Next we're going to create the scroll view, and in the scroll view we will have all the notes that we will create. So all the notes will be inside this later on. Let's give it a style of scroll container. And at the bottom we're gonna need the text input. So let's create first, we create a view and then we add the text input inside the view. I'll show you. Let's call this footer. And inside the footer, let's add the text input. And let's give it a style. Call it styles dot text input. Let's also create a placeholder for the text input. We can say note. And also let's put a placeholder text color and set it to white. And also if you're using Android, you want to add this underline color Android to all the text inputs you create, because it creates an ugly underline if you don't. For iOS it's okay, I think. You don't need anything like that. We're gonna create this style for this text text input later ourselves. And this is the style for now. I actually got the entire style sheet ready because this tutorial is not about writing style sheets really. So I'm just gonna go ahead and copy it in here and we can go through it fast instead. Need to indent it one. There we go. Let's reload the app and see what happens. Yeah, there we go. That's the basic layout. And we got the style sheet for the header here. This is the header with the text we wrote earlier, noter, the name of the app. And the scroll container, as you see here, that's the white part from here down to here. And all our notes will be here later. The footer here with the text input in here. And this is the add button, which we're gonna create now to be able to add the notes. So let's go ahead under the footer. We're gonna add a touchable opacity, which is a button. And inside the button, let's add some text, give it a style, and it's called add button text. And just add a plus mark. And we're gonna give this button a style of add button. Let's reload. And there we got the button too. We can check out the style sheet for the button, which we got here. It has position absolute, so we can position it anywhere we want in the app. With a Z index of 11, which means it will be on top of the actual notes, which will be here. And I'm gonna zoom out, and you can pause the video here to so you can see the entire style sheet for this app right there. So just pause the video and you can copy that part. So now we got the actual layout ready. Next part, we're gonna add some actual functionality. So you can write a note, and when you click here, it's gonna add the actual note. Now we're gonna look at creating some functionality for the app so we can add notes. So let's create a new component. We can copy the code from main.js component, paste it here. We can remove the style sheet, and we can remove the layout too. And we don't need the text input, and we don't need the scroll view for this component. Let's name it note. This component will actually hold every individual note that we create. Save it as note.js in the components folder. And now we're gonna create the layout for the note. So start by creating a view. And I'm just gonna change the syntax to Babel. In the view, we're gonna create a key, and the key is gonna be passed down from the parent with props. And I will show you this later, so don't worry, we will pass these props from the main.js component. And if you're wondering what this attribute is, the key, you need this in React Native applications, because React Native uses this to keep track on which elements has been changed or updated. And if you don't use it, React Native will throw an error telling you should use it, so you really should use it. We're also gonna give this view a style. Let's call it note. Now let's create some text inputs, and also here we're gonna pass props from the parent, and I will show you what we will pass later. Give this style, call it note text, and we can copy this file, which will hold the date, and type note, because this one will hold the actual text from the note. Next, we're gonna add a button so we can delete the notes. We're gonna add a delete method via props. Give it a style. You can call it note delete. Let's also add some text inside this button. Give it a style and call it note delete text. Yes. Give it a value of D for delete. And now I'm not gonna type all the style sheets for the Node component, because this tutorial is really more about creating a to-do app and not about how to create style sheets in React Native. And I have other tutorials for that, so you can check them out in that case. So I'm just gonna copy and paste here, and you can pause the video right here and just copy all the style sheets. And that's it for the Node component. Now we're gonna go over to the main component and we're gonna import it. The next step is to add the constructor, which is run every time this component is instantiated in the app. And here we're gonna define our state, and our state will hold a note array, and also note text from this input here. We can just set that to blank for now. And we can also leave the note array blank for now. Now let's go down and we're gonna map all the nodes from the note array. So this dot state dot note array, which is this array. We're gonna use a JavaScript function called map, which allows us to map values to keys. And this will actually loop all nodes, and the function will return the node component we just created. And now we're also passing down the props to the parent, to the child, sorry, to the child. And we're gonna create the delete method too. We can call it delete node, and we pass the key of the node as an argument. Now, as you see, we pass down the key, keyval, and delete method attributes or props to the node component. Now we're gonna go to the text input, and here we're gonna add some function for onChange text, which is ran every time we change the text in the input field. Yes, let me check one thing. And every time we change the value of the input field, we will also set the state of the node text right here. And we will give this a value of the node text. Now we're also going to go to the button, and we're going to add an onPress function. So when we press this button, we will call the addNode function. So let's create the addNode function right now. And just to try it out, we can try and alert test. I'm gonna reload that and see what happens. Yes, as you can see, it works. So now we just have to add the value of this field to the node array to create a new node. And first we wanna check that the text input value is not empty, because if it's empty, we don't want to do anything with it. We don't want to add empty nodes. And I'm also going to create a new date object, so we can create date to the node. So now we're going to push the date to the node array, or add the date to the node array, and we want to get the year, and we also want to get the month. And we also want to get the day, like this. And also we want to set the value of the note array to this new value. So we update the note array with the new values so we can display it correctly. And the last thing we're going to do in this function is to reset the note text to empty, like this. And that's it for the add note. Now we just need to show the notes here by adding the notes like this from here. Now let's reload the app and see what happens. We get an error, yeah, in main.js at line 70. What's going on there? Oops. Let's try now. Another error. Reserved word, line 72. Oh, I forgot to add. It's supposed to be like this. Now let's try to add a note test. And as you can see, the note is added. But we are not getting the text, only the day. So we're gonna add the note right here. And the note's value is gonna be the note text, which is the value from this field. So let's try now. Yes, now you can see it's working correctly. Now the next thing we want to do, if we press delete now, nothing will happen, as you can see. Yes, you can see the function doesn't exist, so we must create the function. So let's create the function right here. We'll pass the key as the argument. And we will use the splice function to remove an element from the note array. Oops, splice. And we'll pass the key to the splice function. And with this new value, we will update the note array with the new value so it displays correctly. Now let's see how it works. It's going to reload the app. Now let's see what happens if we remove test. Yeah, now it's working. So there you go, it's a fully functional to-do app. Keep in mind that this data that you create, the notes that you create, are not saved. If you restart the app, as I can show you here, they will disappear. So you can check out for yourself ways to save it, to save the data. Hope you learned something. Bye bye.